You saw the title. I'm gonna get to the point. Beginner eyeshadow. I'm going to go over what my go-to brushes are, how to blend. I'm gonna do a pretty basic look. First off, for a good blend, prime your eyelids. You can use concealer. Sometimes I use concealer. This is the MAC Paint Pot in Painterly, and I enjoy it. I find it's a good primer and has lasted me a long time. I used to set my lid before applying shadow, but I don't anymore. I've seen makeup artists recommend not to do that because putting powder on powder just kind of moves it around. Today we're going to use one of my first ever palettes I got. It is the Modern Renaissance palette. These are my two go-to crease brushes. So this is the Sigma E25. Sigma is my favorite brush brand, and this is the Sigma E38, which is a diffused crease brush. For today, this is easier because it has the ability to pack, but then also blend. You can lay down your transition shade first. I used to do that. I'm not as into that anymore. Some people don't like to pack and like to lightly build up the color, which I think is good for a smoky eye, but for a fairly neutral look, I don't feel the need to do that. I really like Real Gar over here. It's kind of an orangey tone, so I'm gonna put that in my crease and we'll go from there. So I just pick up a couple times. I only dip in a little bit. I tap off the excess just with one little tap. And I know it doesn't look the best after one layer. Usually with this palette, I usually go in with 3 and blend it out as I go. For some of my more dramatic looks, I take the crease shade a little higher, like whenever I do reds or bold colors. But for this kind of beginner-friendly look, for those of you who maybe are not the most emo or alternative, I'm just gonna blend it right into my crease today. My eyes are slightly hooded, so I would never just put it here and keep it precise. By the way, as most makeup tutorials will tell you, you can do windshield wiper motions or circular motions. I kind of do a mix of both. Another important thing with blending so that you don't get too harsh is you don't have to hold the brush dramatically, like all the way out here, but don't hold it this high up because then you're really going to go in harsh and you don't want to do that to your eye. I usually hold it about here. So now I'm going to go in with my favorite blending brush, which I've mentioned in previous makeup videos. It is the Sigma E40. It's super fluffy, and for the transition shade I'm going to use today, I'm going to go in with Burnt Orange, which is right here. I think Burnt Orange is a really good match. So I just dip in a couple times, and I don't really care about the shade showing up. I'm just using it to blend out. I usually go in with about 2 layers of my transition shade, and I don't pack it down ever. I just lightly dust it. And when I'm done, I will show you the difference. So see how I kind of do the windshield wiper, and then toward the ends, I'll do circles. So see this eye, this is the blended one, right? And see how that looks. And then this one is not as nicely blended. You really want to take your time with blending. I don't feel like over blending is a thing. I guess it could be, but it wouldn't be something I particularly would worry about. And also, if you want the color to be intensified in the crease with the burnt orange, because obviously blending up with a transition shade, we lose some of that intensity. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go in just with one more layer on each side, and I just dipped in fairly lightly. And I'm just intensifying that a little bit. Gently, gently blending it out. And then what I like to do is, instead of going back in with that transition shade, I just use the brush with, there might be some leftover product on it, and I just go in again and blend everything out so it's a little more seamless. You can just pack a shimmer shadow or a matte shade all over your lid if you prefer that, and I do that sometimes, but for the sake of this look, I'm going to do outer corner as well as a shade on my lid. There is a nice brown shade in here. It's pretty dark, super pigmented because it's so dark. It's Cypress Umber right here, and I'm just using a BH Cosmetics brush that is fluffy but small and precise, so it really gets into that inner corner nicely. I would suggest only going in with a couple layers of this and really lightly pressing it on and blending it, because otherwise you might look like you have a black eye. I mean, if you're into that, that's totally fine. So see how I just dip a couple times? You can tell there's a butt ton on the brush. And then I'm gonna go in. Oh boy, yeah. And I like to kind of like wing my looks out almost. I'm not gonna do a wing liner today. I'm just adding it, and I guess it's not the shadows. My primer's a little old. It may look patchy, but again, you can blend that out. So I'm just going in with 2 layers, and I'm packing it on almost to the middle of my eyelid. And then I'm just blending it. And you guessed it, I'm going to blend even more because that has a little bit of a harsh line. So I'm just gonna go in with this with no extra product on it and blend it out. Again, you just have to be patient and continue blending and you'll get there, I promise. I'm gonna do the other eye and I'll be right back. With really pigmented dark shades, you do get fallout, but I will go in with a makeup wipe and clean this up and clean up underneath. For now, we're gonna do a shimmer shade. My favorite shimmer shade in this palette is Vermeer, but it's more of a pinky toned shimmer, so it doesn't go with this as much as Primavera does, which is right here, which is a goldish shade. I find this is not the most bright gold ever. You can use a packing brush. I really like the Sephora Pro Shadow brush. I find it's the most tightly packed shader brush that I have. And you also can apply setting spray onto the brush and dip it in, and that can help. I prefer to go in with my finger. I find I have the best luck with pigmentation when I use my finger. So I'm just gonna dip in a little bit, start with 1 layer, and go from there. And I do kind of just with my finger lightly blend it into that other shade so we have less of a harsh line going on. I'm gonna go in with 1 more layer. And this one I'm more so packing on with my finger. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wipe this brush off since that color is so pigmented. And I'm just gonna lightly, very, very lightly, I'm barely gonna press down, just gently blend that edge like this. If you could follow, I have this really cheap e.l.f. powder brush, and honestly, I just go whoop, whoop. I always do my eyes before my foundation. I'm not even doing foundation today. The next thing I'm gonna do on camera is the final step. I like to do a brow bone highlight and an inner corner highlight. I don't really like any of the highlights in here, so I'm gonna do something bold for my highlight palette I got recently. I'm not gonna use any of the toned highlights in this palette, so there's a nice white one right here. It's Strobe. It does have a lot of fallout, but it's so pigmented and beautiful that I really don't care. I have to really lightly blend it. If I just pick up a little, I tap off the excess since, like I said, it's very, very pigmented, but it's gorgeous. Oh, and this is just a cheap MUA brush, and I find that it works really, really well to get, especially in the inner corner. It picks up the shadow nicely. I just like to go in with this brush and gently blend out what I did. Sometimes you will get an eye booger and have to go back in, let's be real. I just did my brow bone highlight, and what I like to do, instead of using the E40, I'm actually gonna use the E38 because it's a little smaller and doesn't have anything on it, and I'm just gonna gently blend the brow bone highlight to this. All right, and let me finish my look off camera. Okay, darlings, this is my finished look. Let me zoom you in for my eyeshadow. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this a like and subscribe to my channel if you've been enjoying my content so far. My Instagram is Julie_counseling. My Twitter is JulieCounseling with no underscore. My Facebook page will be linked down below as well, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye guys.